Shortage of good truck parking has been a problem for years, especially in the eastern seaboard. Now that we've got the ELD mandate, it's made the problem even worse. You've got to love government, they come up with all these bright ideas, laws and mandates, and no practical solutions to any of the problems that these things create. So the ELD mandate has created a parking issue that was already a problem. Now it's even worse. So what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? It's a tough battle. The government has relied on truck stops to take up the slack. They've passed the buck to the private sector and said to the truck stops, well, you've got to make more parking. Well, the truck stops, they don't get a lot of money out of parking. They get money from people coming in the restaurant, eating or buying fuel, but the parking doesn't really pay that well. So what have the truck stops done now is made paid parking available. Do I like that concept? Not particularly. Do I see the logic behind it? Well, yes, I do. And do I use paid parking in truck stops? Yes, I have. And when you're coming in late at night, there's no better solution than to have a reserved spot that you can go to. I know it's kind of a new thing, it's kind of off the norm, but with the truck stops filling up early, it's worth it to pay the 10 or the 12 or the 16 bucks to have a safe spot guaranteed for you. It's just the way things are going to work. But another way to combat this problem, probably the best way to combat this problem, is trip planning. Figure out where you want to stop for the night and stop early. Land in a truck stop while there's still spots available, so you don't have to pay for parking. Land early and run your schedule accordingly. If you've got a delivery in the city the next day, park at a truck stop outside of town, because going in and sleeping at the customer isn't always the best solution. You don't know if the neighborhood's safe. You don't know if they've got washrooms available. It's okay if you know the customer, if you're in there on a regular basis, you know the neighborhood and everything like that. But for other customers, most customers, if you don't know the deal, I don't recommend going in there. I recommend parking early, staying out of town, and going in later. Sadly, another way I combat this parking problem is not running the eastern seaboard anymore. Between the traffic and the hours of service and the available parking on the eastern seaboard, it's virtually impossible to get a spot down in there, and a safe spot on top of that. When I'm talking truck parking, I'm not talking empty lots or behind gas stations or in industrial areas. I'm talking good, safe parking in truck stops, and that's all you guys should really be looking at, because you need to have a quality rest at night. You'll produce a better truck driver in the morning if he gets up rested and refreshed and has a shower and goes to work. And it's not worth it risking your life to park outside a customer in what you may not realize is a crappy area. Look at Michael Boglin. That's what he did, and it cost him his life. You don't want to get into a situation like that. The job doesn't pay enough. The load doesn't pay enough to risk your life for it. So one of the other things I do is I don't run the eastern seaboard anymore, and the parking issue is one of the big reasons why. I try to stay west of the Mississippi. You can almost always find parking there. I land early, get a good spot, I trip plan, I figure out where I'm going to be, and I stop early. I don't come close to running out of my hours before I've landed. Yeah, it might bug up at the dispatcher's schedule, but you know what? It's your life. If you're going to survive in this industry, you've got to learn to manage your time. You can't let others manage it for you, and you can't let dispatchers and shippers and receivers dictate to you how you're going to live and whether you're going to be safe or not. That type of thing. You can't be controlled. You've got to do the controlling, or this job will eat you up and spit you out. You're in charge of your own destiny here. And getting a good, proper sleep, landing in a safe area for the night is one of the most important things that you've got to concentrate on. And you've got to set this straight with your trucking company too. And if they can't accommodate your need for that, well, it's probably time for another trucking company, because everybody deserves a certain quality of life when they're trucking. They don't deserve to be sleeping behind gas stations or in empty lots or in slums or commercial industrial parks. It's not safe, and that's not what this job is about. And if it's not happening for you, you got to make it happen. enough of the serious stuff here. I want to tell you a story about my buddy Vic. Now, when I hauled produce, I delivered to a buyer directly. I hauled directly for a buyer. And the guy that always unloaded me was named Vic. He was a big, tough old guy, and he would get up. We had to bump the dock at 3 o'clock in the morning. So Vic was always there to unload me. Whether it was hand bombing or fork truck, Vic was the man. So Vic would get up at 2 in the morning to be at work at 3 in the morning. And Vic had a bit of a rough attitude. He was a bit of a carouser, a bit of a drinker. And the one morning, he got up at 2 to go into work, but he'd been drinking till midnight or 1. He didn't sleep very much. He staggered into the shower. He grabbed a bottle of what he thought was shampoo off the shelf and lathered up his head. And it turns out it wasn't shampoo at all that he grabbed. His wife had a bottle of Neat, which is to take the hair off women's legs. But I gather mostly that it's pretty much acid that burns the hair off. Well, by the time Vic got in to unload me, his scalp was bright red and his hair was falling out, like in gobs. And it burned him bad. And this was a big, tough old boy. But to see him with a bright red scalp and you couldn't tease him and you couldn't crack a smile. And, I tried to be sympathetic, but my God, he looked like a clown out of the circus with a bright red cap on. And I felt so sorry for poor Vic because he was a nice guy. His scalp was red for like a month and a half after that, but just grabbed the wrong shampoo bottle on the shelf. Anyway, boys and girls, stay safe. Keep the rubber side down. Park in a safe area every night. And I'll see you on the back haul. Take care.